To better understand the Writing Center's role in combating fake news, it's best to understand what the Writing Center does and doesn't do. Primarily, the Writing Center shows students how to revise and edit their papers. We help students realize their full writing potential. Our services can start in the paper planning stage. We can help organize student ideas, outline a potential paper, and even brainstorm with students to think of a topic that they're excited about. We can also narrow or broaden a thesis to make sure it is fully supported by its body paragraphs. If students bring in a rough draft, we can help revise it. We can catch spelling mistakes and find and explain grammatical errors and point out sentences that are unclear or confusing. We also look at organization, paragraph development, and continuity. As for sources, we can help with integrating sources and citing them correctly according to the assigned format. We usually help students with MLA, APA, Chicago, and AMA. The writing specialists, such as myself, have master's degrees and work with students at all levels. But we also make classroom presentations. We can pop in to tell about the Writing Center, discuss essay writing, research papers, and even present about how to get creative writing published. Professors can request to have a writing specialist embedded in their courses to help with specified writing assignments. We usually give feedback on outlines, proposals, and rough drafts. We can also work with professors to make sure best practices are put into place for writing assignments. We can assist in class peer review sessions as well. However, we do have limitations at the Writing Center. We cannot guarantee that a student will get an A if they get help from us. We cannot correct an already graded paper either. Now, sometimes a student will stop by with a graded paper and ask for a translation of a professor's feedback. We can't explain everything, but we can answer basic things like, what does CS stand for? Or, what is a run-on sentence? Of course, we obviously do not write student papers or do homework for students. We might answer a homework question if a student genuinely does not understand what a verb is or what a noun is for parts of speech, but that's about as far as it goes. But we also cannot give detailed feedback on a paper's content because we are not experts in every field. The content of the paper is up to the student. We can say if something is unclear. We can ask for more details, but we cannot do much more. Finally, we cannot ensure that students who visit the Writing Center will implement our suggestions that we offer. We often have time constraints, so we honor students' requests first. For example, we may need heavy revising coaching that takes up our session, so the grammar takes a back seat. So if we are unable to go into content, how do we help with fake news? Well, we have some strategies for getting conversation going about sources that are questionable at best. These conversations can get students looking at their sources more critically and asking questions. We do this by teaching students how to introduce sources, asking questions about the credibility of chosen sources for an introduction's sake and to further an argument, checking a paper's structure for opposing viewpoints, and reminding students about our reference librarians. When teaching students about introducing a source and using a source, we generally ask if the author is named. This is great for in-text citations and setting up the paper, but it's also great because it can help in combating fake news by seeing if an author was willing to put their name on an article. When there's a source that doesn't have a name, we chat about the publisher. Sometimes, the American Psychological Association doesn't have their authors, but many people in the psychology field know exactly who the APA are. Putting that name in the references looks good. However, putting a name down like the Boston Tribune, which is known for a lot of scammy articles that weren't true, isn't so good. Now, if there is an author's name, we ask what the author's credentials are. After all, if the author is experienced, they should have some good credentials that can make their claims more legitimate. This can lead to possibly seeing a bias associated with the author. Background is important when setting the stage for a source. Now, if the author isn't well known, we ask where the source is from. Checking the URL can help spot a news site that's trying to mimic a more credible one, like how breaking-cnn.com is much different from cnn.com. For example, if you currently check in with breaking-cnn.com, you'll be told that you're the 1,000th visitor or some sort of nonsense like that because it's very much a fraudulent website. So while we're looking at the website, we can check to see what organization that it is part of, or if there is even a publisher or a sponsor. After checking out the URL, you can actually take a look at the website itself to check to see what organization it is part of, or if there is even a publisher or a sponsor for it. If there is one, does that organization have a bias? Is the bias acknowledged in the paper? These are good questions to ask. Checking to see if the source cites its sources is also important. It can give the students possible new places to research for their paper, or it can show that the source is not trustworthy because it doesn't have anything to back itself up with. Looking for an opposing viewpoint is another good way to ferret out potential fake news. We will ask the student if there are sources that disagree with the sources in their paper. Ideally, we're aiming to have students compare their information with other information out there. The student may realize their information is being called out. Plus, having an opposing viewpoint is essential for a good argumentative research paper. For the student to help support their argument with their source, we also ask if other sources agree with them. This could easily show students whether or not their source is standing alone on a topic, or if it got it from another place that had no other backup. In a way, the student is peer reviewing the source on their own. Finally, recommending peer-reviewed sources can help combat fake news. Honestly, a lot of the students I chat with do not know what peer-reviewed even means. Some are still afraid of databases, which is why we refer them to the reference librarians. At the Writing Center, we can show a few basic things about databases, but we know that databases and finding sources are where reference librarians shine. They are experts in information and can direct students to credible sources. We strive to keep a relationship with the library for better communication and to further our network of resources because the more resources we know about, the more resources we can use to help our students. After all, the better the sources, the better the writing. Thank you for listening to this video, and if you have any questions for me or anything that you would like to ask, please wait until the designated time, or you can always email me at mhamilton1. You have to have the 1 in there because if you forget, you might email Mr. Mark Hamilton instead. So that is mhamilton1@lindenwood.edu. So I'm just going to leave this slide up for a minute so you have time to jot down that email address.